Welcome to Stock Therapy with Penny Queen. I have recorded an entire video, an explainer on naphtha crackers, what they are, what they take in, and why it matters to the chemical recycling industry. And I've been planning to do it since my interview with Eric Appelman. A lot of what we talked about really centered on naphtha crackers, and I got a lot of questions back about them. After today's release, I understand why he was talking so much about naphtha crackers. And so I'm going to scrap the video and dive in with a little bit of detail on what they are, how they work, but also why this matters for Aduro now. I think this is one of the most important technical updates in the company's history, and honestly for the whole chemical recycling sector. Now, I want to break it down in a way that makes sense, whether you're just an engineer or somebody trying to understand why this matters. So quick disclosure before we dive in, I have been a shareholder since IPO, and none of this is investment advice. But let's talk about what happened and why it's a big deal. So Steam Cracker 101. What you need if you want to make plastics is ethylene and propylene. These come from steam crackers, enormous billion-dollar 850-degree furnaces that break apart hydrocarbons. These things are the crown jewels of the petrochemical world. They're multi-billion-dollar assets, incredibly picky, terrifyingly expensive to shut down, and operated by companies that are allergic to risk. So they normally run on clean, consistent fossil feedstocks, things like naphtha or natural gas liquids. If you give a cracker something that's unstable, contaminated, or unpredictable, it can coke up, foul, lose yield, or shut down. A shutdown costs millions per day. So that's a backdrop for you. Why most plastic oils are a nightmare for crackers is because most pyrolysis-based chemical recyclers produce an oil that isn't ready for a cracker. The problems include too many contaminants, unstable compounds, too many very heavy waxes, too many very light gases, wide, messy molecular distributions. So what they do is they bolt on hydrotreatment equipment. This is what we've been talking about and why Aduro has this edge. So hydro treatment adds $400 to $500 per ton in cleanup costs, but it adds hydrogen supply, high pressure reactors, extra capex, complexity, and even more ways to fail. And even after that, many operators still insist on diluting the oil with fossil naphtha just to stabilize it. This is why chemical recycling has struggled financially. Feedstocks, hydro treatment costs, and low yield all pile up. So now what Aduro just announced, this is where everything shifts. So we don't know who it is, but we have a short list. There are only 4 companies on Earth that license steam cracker technology, just 4. So we have KBR with a $5 billion market cap. We have Technip Energies, which has a $6 billion market cap. We have Lummus Technology, which is private, but I do know they raised at least $4 billion before going private. And Linde, which has I believe a $195 billion US valuation. So I just want to translate what that means. Getting validation from one of these 4 companies in the chemical recycling industry is the equivalent of getting FDA approval for a breakthrough drug. These are global authorities on whether a new feedstock can run in the world's most valuable chemical assets. And the jaw-dropping part, this multi-billion-dollar player ran Aduro's oil as is. No hydro treatment, no polishing, no dilution, no blending with fossil naphtha. They took the oil straight out of Aduro's hydrochemolytic process, made from mixed, contaminated post-consumer plastics, including PE, PP, PS, PET, and PA. And they fed that directly into their pilot cracker, and it worked. Stable furnace operation. No coking, no fouling, no pressure issues. Yields comparable to conventional fossil liquid feeds. Yields comparable to hydro-treated pyrolysis oil. That phrase alone, stable furnace operation, in the chemical industry, that's their version of a mic drop. So steam crackers are like Formula One engines. They're incredibly high performance, but temperamental. Feed them the wrong fuel and they'll coke up, lose efficiency, or shut down entirely. As I said before, a shutdown can cost millions a day. So when one of the only 4 companies in the world that license this technology say stable operation, they're saying this drop-in replacement works in our multi-billion-dollar asset. That hasn't happened until now. So there's a little more nuance to that. I'm sure you've heard me talk about the different types of plastics that Aduro said they've been able to recycle. So this is the PET and PA nuance. And I think it's pretty important. So the feedstock wasn't cherry picked pure stream. It included HDPE, LDPE, PP, PS, and even small amounts of PET and polyamide, the PA. So to be clear, Aduro's not claiming high conversion of PET or PA. The real story is this: Aduro's process tolerated those contaminants and still produced an oil clean enough to run as is in the cracker. That's robustness. That's real world practicality. That is a massive differentiator in mixed waste environments. So why it matters economically, like the value stack, this is where the story takes off. The feedstock economics flip upside down. So competitors often pay $600 to $700 per ton for clean feed. Aduro can take mixed contaminated waste. So we're talking about waste that people are trying to get rid of. So there is a high likelihood that they could get paid to take the feedstock. So you're already starting with a $700 to $800 swing versus pyrolysis. Hydrotreatment is eliminated. That's $400 to $500 per ton avoided. No hydrogen, no polishing reactors, no extra capex. So yields are dramatically higher. Consultants estimate that pyrolysis gets about 65% of its carbon into the steam cracker crackable range, and Aduro is around 85%. So let's turn that into dollars. Take a 25,000 ton per year plant, pyrolysis will get 16,250 tons of product, where Aduro would get 21,250 tons. That's using the 65% and 85% numbers. So that's 5,000 extra tons of high value output per year. And if the product is worth $1,000 per ton, that's $5 million per year in extra revenue from yield alone per plant. So precision matters. If pyrolysis is like forcing a square peg into a round hole and sanding it until it fits, Aduro is like making round pegs from the start. So the oil is already the right molecular size for the cracker. We've got policy tailwinds that align perfectly. Europe's PPWR rules only count carbons that go back into materials, not those that are burned as fuel. So higher yield of crackable product equals more credits, equals more revenue. If this can be integrated into established steam cracking operations without major modifications, this speaks to the entire $100 billion installed base worldwide. You don't need a new plant, you just need new feed. So next I want to talk about the competitive moat that this can create. Aduro has cracker validation, high yields, low capex, no hydrotreatment, tipping fee economics, and tolerance for real world mixed waste. They're building a moat that no pyrolysis competitor can cross without reinventing their process from scratch. This is no longer promising technology. This is proven compatibility with the hardest, most risk-averse equipment in the industry. This is when demonstration plants turn into commercial plants. This is when banks, insurers, and offtake partners stop hesitating. This is where the dominoes start falling. So what comes next? Here's what I expect next from Aduro. Steady NGP data across multiple feedstocks, updates on the Netherlands site, discussions with cracker operators and offtake partners, early project development, and more independent validation. Now that a major player has said, yes, this works, every major player watching this space will hear it. All right, if you found this breakdown helpful, hit the like, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll keep covering Aduro. It's my baby. I can't wait to move from validation to scale up.